So we're going to talk about the back squat. Before we even get into the back squat, we've got to talk about the J-hooks. So J-hook position really, for most people, it's going to be about mid-chest. If it's too high, you kind of lose position getting off the rack. If it's too low, it's going to be a little bit dangerous getting people back into the rack. So this height means it's just a little bit lower so you can lift off easily and get back in easy. So if Kev jumps in, so the first thing when he comes into this, he's going to come underneath the bar and you're going to rest it up onto the upper traps. This is the high bar position. This works well for most of our clients. Most people aren't going to get into that low bar. We want his hands here, probably about a fist away from his shoulders, in a position where you can pull down and engage his lats and stabilize through the shoulder. Now, we want to make sure with our clients the walk back is the same. If you see there, Kev's walk back was very purposeful. So he knows what his stance is and he steps back into it. As regards to stance, everyone's going to be slightly different. If a client's got longer femurs, which is this upper leg bone here, we're going to take a slightly wider stance. What this will do is it'll give the illusion on the angle that this femur is a little bit shorter and makes it easier for him to hit depth. If he's longer through this lower part of the leg to tip in, a slightly narrower stance might get a little bit more out of it. So Kev goes back into his stance here. Now, executing the squat. It still depends on the structure of the lifter. For someone like Kev, it's a little bit longer through that lower leg. I would normally initiate through knees first, driving over the toes, and then driving the hips in the diagonal line. So just come down for me into his squat, knees bent first, and now he pulls down to that position, getting to pause through there, drive into the floor to come back up. Now, what we're going to think about doing with the feet, here at that top position, there's not much tension. You don't really need much tension with those feet, just enough to get you stable. As he comes down to that bottom position, he is going to be weaker in this bottom position and the load is going to be heavier. So he needs the most stability here than any other part of the lift. So what he wants him to think about doing with his feet is he comes up, come up for me, slight turn out the feet, and as you come down, think about screwing the floor out more and more and more. Almost like you're trying to spin two paper plates out. So come down for me, increase that tension to the feet, increase that tension to the feet. And now in that bottom position, he's going to be way more stable here in the top where he needs it the most. Come back up for me. So, we've talked about here why you might want a wider stance if someone's got a longer position. If someone's longer through the femur here, another thing we can do is elevate the heels. So, what this will do, it might help improving some ankle mobility here, but it just increases the size of the floor to knee. So it's like we've stretched his shin out an inch or so. This will allow him to drive his knees over his toes more and keep a much more upright torso position. If he comes down now, like out of the way, we see here it's much easier for him to keep an upright position, and now this is a much more quad dominant squat than he was doing before. Jump back up for me. So we've talked about the stance, we've talked about heels elevated, and we've talked about screwing those feet in at the bottom position. Just jump forward for me a little bit. Even with that, some lifters are going to have a much more hip dominant squat. So if you can do a more hip dominant squat for me. How we see this is if we see here, the line directly from the bar is going to be further from the hip than the knee. This doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad squat, but if your client needs to build quads, you'll be using other exercises to achieve that in the Bs and the C series.